Hey, it's your buddy Peace and Harmony with you here today. Female psychopathic brainwashing, what is it all about? What is it about the female psychopath and their brainwashing that makes it so insidious, that makes it so thorough, that makes it so complete, that is really so addicting to the targets that they have determined or decided will be their prey? It's very important to understand that as we understand someone who is psychopathic, someone who presents without a conscience, and it's not like, well, this person is just unethical, that they're bending a few rules. It is that this person has no sense of conscience. They really completely, because of the neurological networks, the way that their brain is wired, and the chemical process, particularly the dopamine reward system, and its hypersensitivity to reward, and coupled oftentimes with other processes going on in other areas, the left anterior postulatus, a number of different areas, a lot of excessive testosterone. There's a lot of different neurochemical exchanges going on. Too many tongue twisters and too clinical, and really too much that is yet unknown about the brain scans and neural networks of a psychopath. But the dopamine is basically one thing you can understand, which is what we're going to call the reward chemical. So your dopamine is engaged and you get a surge, a rush of dopamine when you are rewarded. So whatever is rewarding for you, whether it's getting a new car, planning a vacation, getting a bonus at work, getting a fantastic addition for your house, that is rewarding. Your dopamine levels are on. Now, in the mind of a psychopath, there's a deficit of dopamine. So their brain is not keeping a very strong baseline of dopamine going on. Yet their receptor sites have an excessive sensitivity to dopamine. So their neural network is going to release 4 times more dopamine when they are targeting something or when they want something. And then there is a lack of testosterone, a surplus of testosterone, which makes for the aggressive side, and then coupled with a lack of empathy. So think of it as if they're looking at everybody as not only an enemy, but I'm going to get what I want, and I'm going to furthermore destroy that person because they take a certain delight or pleasure in seeing the hurt of others. It's very complicated, and I don't want to get into too much of a clinical aspect or scientific aspect, but realize that there is something scientific and going on neurologically within the mind of this female, which makes them want to target, entice, and control others who they are targeting. And oftentimes it's because of this hypersensitivity to dopamine that once they're targeting it, they just keep going. So they're going to be very severe, and oftentimes this takes the place in terms of brainwashing those targets. And if it's in an opposite sex relationship, in other words, you're a man who's watching this, oftentimes this person has targeted you for something that they want, particularly sex, money, clout. You could have been married, and so that just breaking up your family, breaking up your business, taking down your self-esteem, destroying your sense of security, your sense of position in your company, your family, your life. They're going to want to manipulate and take that away from you. So to see you destroyed oftentimes is their desire. It seems very sick, very counterintuitive, very counterproductive. But this individual, this is really what we call an interspecies predator, Dr. Robert Hare. And you can look at the Hare checklist. One thing I really want to help you understand is that this female psychopath will violate your sense of self and your own internal boundaries and get you to abandon these. So that's part of the brainwashing. What is it about the brainwashing of the female psychopath? It is because if they can break down your sense of self, your boundaries, where you would normally say no, where they would break your routine, you have a specific routine, you have something that's beneficial and healthy to you, if they can break that up, if they can break that out, if they can dissolve that, they have just conquered you. They have just taken over you. They have just psychologically taken over your mind thought processes that you have been habituated, that have been positive for you. They're breaking that down. They're dissolving that. They're eroding it. They're corrupting it. And they're instead getting you to exchange that for the thrill of being with them. The addiction of being attracted to this seductive, powerful woman, or sexually explicit woman who perhaps has been extremely sexual, etc. And we're not going to go there, but who has violated boundaries within the context of the sexual relationship. So, whether it's taking you places, whether it is, saying specific things, whether it's twisting information in your mind of what things mean, and then you no longer have kind of a baseline context for the meaning, emotional meaning of things, that these are now twisted and distorted. This is part of the gaslighting. It gets you to disobey yourself and obey her instead. And it's not just like a relationship where you're, it's a positive feeling. It's more of like an addiction. It becomes, your dopamine then is now hyper aroused as this psychopath is, and they're getting you on that hypersexual, hyper arousal state where they're, interrupting your natural pattern of your focus and getting you then to be hyper aroused, oftentimes sexually, and then coupled with other monetary things where you're maybe giving her the keys to your car or doing specific things which are giving her what she wants, whatever it is that she wants. It's very pre-calculated, and that is the thing. And yes, we do have psychopaths who make comments and share what it's like, and it's very hollow inside. So these women have a tendency to push their weight around, push their charm around, because they would break laws, break rules where most people would stop themselves. See, they can just bypass all this where most people would say, okay, I would stop here. That's not right. See, the psychopath does not have a conscience. They literally, can do things that are violating of people, breaking the law, where they don't feel a sense of remorse or regret. They're actually very entertained by it. They actually think it's hilarious, and they actually think it's funny that people can be destroyed. They have no sense of regret or remorse. I mean, they just don't feel it. Yet they see that other people have this whole spectrum of feelings that they do not have. They just don't. They don't have these emotions. And so people are oftentimes spellbounded or attracted to these people because they see that they are unflinching in other areas where they should be flinching. And I think originally men are attracted to this because they're like, wow, that's a really strong sexual woman. She is not disturbed by the fact that she just did this or this, or she said this and this to me, or she did this and this with her body, or she does this and this in her life or for her lifestyle. And yet this is really a behavior that is meant to quench an insatiable boredom within the psychopathic female. So you see this hyperarousal, this pathological mask, which is really not the true person. They can craft a persona to meet any specific situation. I mean, they could fake themselves into different professions. I mean, it's, we don't want to go there right now, but, that is what you're dealing with. And that's why it's so... oftentimes there's a terror once you've been taken over by this type of person, because your own sense of groundedness and reality is so shaken. You need to really purge from them, and not only go no contact, just really settle your mind down and get back to your senses. Tone down that hyper arousal. Really relax. Really do some breathing techniques, do some meditation where you can learn to meditate and focus and become more mindful. I mean, seriously, put on the 432 hertz music, do the deep breathing, do the guided meditations that you can oftentimes find on YouTube that are very kind of coming back to center and groundedness. And you might really need to purge your system for several weeks and several months from this type of person to get that hyper arousal and that gaslighting out of your system, so you're no longer feeling so scarred and feeling so hurt in the recesses of your brain, which, you know, result in that hyperactivity, in that feeling like you're coming out of an addiction. You do need to go through a withdrawal, especially from the thought processes and the hyper arousal, the hypersexual arousal that oftentimes comes and is triggered by these types of women, and begin to shore up your boundaries and learn to say no and protect yourself for all the good and valuable person that you are before it's further ruined by this type of female psychopath who's meant just to basically play people for a toy and get their reaction and seduction from this type of woman. It's very pathological and something that you don't want to mess with or engage with. Peace and harmony with you here today. I hope these videos, that they do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support.